Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of Catching Up with the Mouse, a series where we try to catch up with all the series that we didn't get to within the following year. Part 2 of our video today, after dealing with the big cluster of reviews in the first part, we deal with only one show today, Andor.
And/or.
Ugh. So before we get started, we want to make our feelings on this very, very clear. We went into this being pretty much almost completely biased toward this being bad. Reason being is because, as we've mentioned before, both of us had seen Rogue One in theaters. Neither of us really cared for it. We maybe liked the last third, I want to say.
I'd say the second half.
The second half, I'd say, was better.
The second half was actually pretty good.
But, the first half was just unbearable for us. It was close, in our opinion, to being a really bad film, with only certain things about it that saved it. So the fact that they were basing an entire series around this character, one of the few characters we did not like in the movie, it kind of baffled us. Because, you had these other characters. You had the robot, you had the blind guy. But they choose to focus on Cassian Andor, who I honestly didn't remember a single thing about at all. And I get they were trying to, take a character nobody knew about, flesh him out, and then, flesh out the rest of the world around him as a result. But why?
And aside from, the very end of Rogue One, I can't remember a damn thing that he does.
It was baffling. And the fact that it's so long, too. At 12 episodes. And they're all clocking in, 45 minutes each or something like that? Dear God, not even Mandalorian went that long, I think. So, yeah, this was why we were really apprehensive about taking on it all. And when it came down to figuring out what do we cover, what do we cut, since we were limited on time due to the move, we're like, oh, yeah, we're definitely pushing Andor back. For certain. We kept saying, okay, maybe we'll just do the first episode and then we'll do the next two together and then maybe we'll do a full thing. And eventually you got to the point where we're thinking maybe we shouldn't even do this at all. But
big problem is they dropped 3 episodes on day 1. Just watching the first one alone, I was ready to just call it and be done with the show.
Yeah, I understand why they did it, but we're going to get to that part soon in terms of talking about the story and the pacing and stuff, but yeah, it was just too much for us, and we're like, look, we're either going to cancel this or we're just going to do a full-on season review, because that's the only way we're going to be able to do that at this point. And since I know there are people out there who have been asking for our opinion, I felt bad, not addressing it, since it's the hot new thing right now in terms of Star Wars, before Bad Batch and Mandalorian comes back. So it was only natural that we had to put our 2 cents in and had to subject ourselves to this. And trust me, it was like pulling teeth. I just wanted to get all that out of the way right now, because I guarantee you there are people out there that are definitely going to be pissed by our take on Andor. I shit you not. I wrote maybe half a sentence on my Facebook page, asking why do people think Andor is good. One of my Facebook friends, a guy I worked with years ago, who I haven't spoken to since, years and years. I never even see activity on his Facebook page. I thought he died at one point. Suddenly came out of the woodwork and left 2 giant-ass paragraphs in the comments, saying that, oh, this is why Andor's so good, this is why you don't see how great it is, I'm like, wow. Fucking Star Wars fans, man. Fucking Star Wars fans. You say one bad thing about something they like, they will come out of the fucking woodwork and just lambast your ass about it. Dear God, I'm totally expecting something like that on this video once it comes out. So, just be aware, we know what we're getting into. We're just making you aware that we are most likely going to say things you are not going to like and are not going to want to hear. So, y'all been warned. And, general spoilers as well, just because for those of you who don't watch our regular stuff, yes, we get into spoilers. So if you haven't watched everything, bow out now, come back later. So again, because of how friggin' long this show is, because of the pacing and everything, It's really hard to do an episode-by-episode analysis of this, because honestly...
I don't even remember a lot of the stuff that happened.
There are so many side stuff going on in addition to the main stuff, it's impossible to keep track of. So for the sake of keeping our sanity, we're just gonna, divide into two things. We're gonna address the overarching story arc by arc, and then we're going to address the characters in terms of what's going on with them. That, to me, is the best way of doing things. So basically, Andor can be divided into 4 parts. You have the big confrontation on Phoenix, and the whole thing is basically him just trying to get off his home planet. The second part is him being forcefully dragged into a heist with the budding Rebel Alliance. Third part is a prison break, because he ends up in prison and now has to find a way to break out, as well as break out the other prisoners. And then the last part is the funeral, and that's a whole big thing as well. So yeah, this entire thing starts, all of the insanity basically starts because Andor was looking for his sister. We find out all about his past and stuff. We find out that he thinks his sister might be alive, so he's going through shady means to try to find out, information about her. But unfortunately, he gains the attention of these 2 Imperial officers. They're kind of drunk. They're trying to look for a good time and everything. But then, of course, they get rowdy. They confront him and stuff. He ends up killing them.
Like you do.
Yeah, that gets the attention of this one officer who is determined to go after them, even though his superiors and everyone else, really don't give a crap. Plus, the 2 guys were kind of assholes. They were doing stuff they weren't supposed to, so it's no big deal if they end up getting themselves killed. But no, this guy is super hella committed to solving this mystery, tracks Andor down to his home planet, and pretty much launches his own siege upon his hometown. And it's this big old thing where it's not just Andor trying to escape, but he gets picked up by this guy Lutheran, who is there for other means. And because of his intervention, Lutheran leaves with Cassian after basically screwing over that whole battalion, getting half of them killed in the process. And tells him, okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll drop you off somewhere if you want, but if you work for me, you're going to get some good moolah out of the deal.
The very first episode alone, just... oh my god, the pacing of it. Just so much is not happening. It's like when something does happen, I've completely checked out. I can't even pay attention. The first 2 episodes were just so boring and padded. After 1 episode, I'm ready to write it off. And then people say, oh, stick with it, it gets better. So finally we went back and we came back with episode 2, and still painful. Then we get to episode 3, and finally something's happening.
That leads to the second part of the story, like I said, the heist. That, in my opinion, was easily the best part of this, because
that was the most consistent out of everything. From what I'm seeing, this is really the justification for binging, because you really should watch these episodes 3 at a time.
Yeah, that's referring to what I meant when I said they dropped the first 3 episodes when it aired, because you cannot watch one of those episodes alone by itself. You will not know what's going on. You will be bored. We were ready to call it quits just after the first episode alone. So I can understand why they would do that. And as you're about to say, it's understandable why they do it, especially in this part.
Yeah. So this one's good. It's basically, he meets up with the team that Luthen's put together, or I guess he's connected with. I don't know if he actually put it together. So they're ready to raid this fortress that the Empire's got on this sort of highland planet, where they've basically dammed up a river and they've screwed over the natives living there in every possible way. There's supposed to be a ceremony that the natives are coming back up for. So they're using this as a way to sneak in and steal the bankroll at the very bottom of the base. What's really good is they have this nice build-up with it. Him actually getting some character development, and the others getting development, training for the heist. A lot of time he's going under an assumed identity, but by the end of it, he actually does reveal himself as a merc. He's just there, just cause.
For the money, basically.
Yeah, for the money, because obviously nobody's trusting him, and he feels like if they don't, then this thing is not going to happen.
Yeah, for whatever reason, Luthen decided to drop him off, like, when they are literally days away from a heist they've been planning for months, and it's not a good look, and he can't really give her justification for why he's doing it. She just really has no choice since he's financing the whole thing. She basically has to go along with it, the leader of the group, and Andor's trying to keep on the down low, but obviously everyone finds him suspicious. He ends up having to reveal why he's there just for the sake of, like, not being the reason they all back out because of his presence, which I can understand. Some of them are rather hardcore, like, they're like people who personally have lost people because of the Empire, who lost their homes, so this is really personal for them, and to have someone who's just there for the money, you know, rubs them the wrong way. But it's like, you're in a kind of a war here. You're trying to take on, like, this unstoppable force. Like, why does it matter the when, why, or how of why certain people are there? Unless, you know, they plan to betray you, which we'll get into that in a bit. But in terms of the heist itself, it was probably the most invested I've been this entire season. It was actually tense. You weren't sure how it was going to be pulled off. You didn't know who was going to live or survive, with the exception of Cassian, obviously. And the fact that they even got through it at all was rather impressive.
They lost, like, most of the crew in the process, like, at the very end. And it's interesting because they did a really good job. They did everything right. And yet, ultimately, in the end, the Empire did wind up catching on, not entirely in enough time to stop it, but they did take out, their guy on the inside, and then, of course, in the escape, that one kid, the young guy who's got the manifesto, he winds up getting crushed by the payload.
That was a bit sad. I didn't think I really give a shit about any of these characters, and I kind of didn't, but it was just enough where I was sad when the kid didn't make it, since he truly did seem to believe in the cause. So it was rather sad at that, but I mean, Andor gets the manifesto from him, so, you know, there's that at the very least.
Meanwhile, we also kind of see Luthen has a side hustle to bankroll the rebellion by working in sort of an antiquities shop where he will frequently meet up with Mon Mothma from the original films.
Yeah, the only character anybody recognizes, like, aside from Cassian in this. But you see how, you know, how he's able to keep this front up, how he's able to finance himself, and, you know, how he's able to keep it, you know, one hand in each pot in everything that he does. So you have that going on. Real thing I want to say real quick, one good aspect of this show that I can appreciate is that it's not a CGI fest for the most part. In fact, a lot of the sets were actually real locations. Like, most of the heist takes place in the Highlands of Scotland. And you could tell based on, like, the hilly terrains and everything.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous.
And it's like, where's this been for the longest time? Like, not that the other more recent shows haven't been utilizing a bit more of, like, natural locations as well as, like, practical effects and costumes and stuff, but, like, this one, you could tell why people really like the look of it, because it actually feels authentically real and gritty. And it's, again, not a CGI fest. You don't have any Jar Jar Binks level aliens all over the place. In fact, there's hardly any aliens in a lot of this show, which makes it kind of weird, but...
Well, I mean, I think part of that is because the Emperor is a huge racist. When he converted everything into the Empire, he kind of either killed off or pushed out anyone who wasn't, like, humanoid. And that's kind of interesting. That's an aspect I like about them showing the day-to-day of the Empire. Seeing them, you know, in an office, just dealing with that. It's kind of interesting because you never really see that aspect of it in any of the movies or any of the TV shows.
I just find the irony that, like, people like the realism of this and the fact that it's being played so straight. Like, you can theoretically put all these people and stuff into a crime drama and there'd be no difference. It's like, oh, there's no space, but, you know, whatever, that doesn't change anything. I just find it funny how people appreciate that, and yet they hated the whole bureaucratic Senate scene in, like, the prequels and stuff.
Well, honestly, the thing that I hear a bunch from people is that they like the focus not on the Jedi, getting to see the rest of the universe, the world, really world build on there without dipping into the laziness of the Jedi and lightsabers and the Force and everything. And honestly, I'm for it. It was kind of why I liked The Mandalorian in the beginning, before, season 2, when they really started incorporating the Force into it. But yeah, no, I'm with you on that. We'll talk more about my feelings on it later, but I do really appreciate what they've done in that aspect.
Yeah, so like I said, that was usually the strongest bit, but then after the heist happens, it kind of dips a bit. The one thing that really was jarring is that there was apparently a big passage of time, but you can't tell based on the way it's shot. Like, even when they did the whole flashback scenes to Cassian's past in the first half of this, if it wasn't for the fact that you were, like, watching kids on, a jungle planet, you couldn't tell that those were supposed to be flashbacks. Like, if they didn't call him, like, Cassa, it's like, oh, that's supposed to be Cassian. And it's the same thing with this. We get into the third part, which is, like I said, the prison part, where he ends up getting arrested for a stupid made-up menial charge and is sent for 6 years or something. When I'm watching this, I'm like, wait, are we really doing this? Like, he just went through all this big heist and stuff, but he gets arrested just because he's walking around looking suspicious. And then I'm thinking, wait, he talked about getting arrested years back, but he apparently left early, I guess, because he broke out or something. So I'm thinking, okay, this must be a flashback to that or something. But no, I later learned it's all in real time, and it takes place over the course of a year. And that's the thing, like I said, you have really no concept, aside from when you're in the prison, you see they have their number of shifts in their cell, showing how many they have left, and that's the only indication of passage of time. Otherwise, you couldn't tell at all. And it's weird because the first half of the series takes place over the course of a couple days. And then suddenly we move forward months. And there's really no indication. It's so jarring in that sense. In terms of the prison, I thought it was a rather unique setup that they had. The fact that they're able to keep their prisoners in line, not because of guards per se, or because they keep them shackled up. They basically have an electrified floor. So if anybody acts up or anything, they activate it, and then they get shocked into submission. And meanwhile, all the guards and stuff are wearing these special, I guess, electric-proof boots or something, where the prisoners were all kept barefoot. And I gotta say, not that I'm creeped out by feet or anything, but there's just way too many takes of people's feet for my liking. It almost felt like a Quentin Tarantino film at one point. But even so, I thought it was a unique setup, especially how they keep the guys in their cells, because literally they can't leave their cells. It's basically a game of hot lava. The floor is lava. They step on it, they die. And they even show someone theoretically committing suicide by doing this. And aside from just being in their cells, their job is to basically work non-stop building these parts for the Empire to use in their weapons, their aircraft, and so forth. And while we're there, we meet some of the prisoners, and not that we really find any backstories. It's mostly a lot of them really aren't there because they're hardened criminals. Again, they're all just petty crimes that the Empire is giving them outrageous sentences for. And Cassian, of course, is trying to come up with a way to escape. He's trying to figure out, he's trying to appeal to the guy in charge, but of course, he's determined to do his job. He only has this many shifts left, and then he's free. But then we learn later on that the prison isn't so much a prison, it's more of basically a sweatshop. In that they basically arrest anybody and take them there, on these outrageous charges for huge amount of sentences, but they just never let them go.
Give them the illusion that they're getting out, and then they wind up transferring them to a different prison or a different part of the prison. So, nobody is any the wiser.
Yeah, pretty much the only way out is death or suicide. That's the only ways out of that place. And that's what leads to Cassian convincing the one prisoner to help him escape. And through a rather ingenious way of basically wetting the floor and everything, they actually are able to do that. And for the most part, a lot of them are able to escape, theoretically. This is still a prison, and it's still in the middle of the ocean on an unknown planet in the middle of nowhere. So God knows how many people actually manage to escape. But Andor does, and so does this one guy that I read apparently showed up in Rogue One. I think he was one of the side guys or something. I have no clue, honestly. But then I said that leads into the fourth and final part of this, the funeral. Because the one relative that Cassian has left is basically his adopted mother. She is shown that she is old and frail. She's slowly deteriorating in health. But she's strong, internally, in that she wants to fight against the Empire in any way she can. And she knows that Andor's is the key to getting this revolution started, at least for their planet. But again, because his mentality is, he has a survivor's mentality, every man for himself or whatever, she's trying to change all that. And she's trying to spark that in other people. So when she finally does die, she knows that Andor's going to come back to see her. She knows that there's going to be the Empire there and a lot of other people. So in the funeral scene, a really cool moment was they show a hollow projection of her giving basically her final speech and everything before she dies, where, she says she's sick of, being quiet, she's sick of not doing anything, she's telling everybody to rise up against the Empire, and that's when it breaks out into a full-on riot. And that's kind of what leads into the end of season 1. Like I said, it's basically those 4 big points throughout, and then it's kind of a lot of side quests and side characters quests, in between, that kind of, makes it a bit uneven.
That's a big problem, is that there are too many characters in this. Some of them it works, others it's I don't care. Why? I think probably the strongest thing is that with the heist, we really just focus on these characters. We put the characters from Ferrex off to the side and don't really pay attention to them. We pay attention to Mon Mothma and Lucien, but aside from that, it's pretty focused. Oh, and the Empire, of course, we focus on them. But yeah, everything else, it's they're constantly introducing characters, and it's very hit or miss. Obviously, there's a plot reason for them to be there. Other times, I'm why are they even there?
It's funny because I kind of think of how George Lucas would look at this, and I could just see in his mind where he's looking at all these new characters, because obviously he's a guy that was a pro at that. He would introduce these side characters, these background characters and stuff that had no bearing on the plot whatsoever. But they ended up being iconic because, as a businessman, his job was to make merchandising and toys in order to finance his projects. So pretty much all of the menial background people became action figures and stuff. And collectors who are obsessed with Star Wars, they collect anything, they'll buy it just because it's Star Wars, regardless of whether or not those characters were involved with anything or if they had personalities or whatever. So I can only imagine him watching this, looking at these characters and thinking, I can't make toys of these people. I guess I could try if they had certain outfits, but I couldn't see that happening. And I know, this film is, seems very anti-merchandise in a way.
No, it's definitely pro-merchandise. You got the droid.
It's less merchandise than others. Obviously, Mandalorian is one of, the peak merchandising properties of Star Wars, aside from the movies themselves. You will always see a point in, every Star Wars thing where you can tell a character's there just for merchandising. And with Andor, it's yeah, they had the droid, but he's not in it all that much, and it's not like he has, a cute shtick or anything.
Yes, he does. He has a stutter. He's very pessimistic. He's basically almost like C-3PO in a way. He'll tell you, I don't think you should do this, Davey, and then does it.
Maybe. It's not like he's along all that much, though. Heck, friggin' Lola from Obi-Wan had more merchandising potential than that droid did. And it's not like they come across any other, cute little aliens or anything, or any person or character or whatever that has, a flashy outfit. I don't know, I guess they probably will still make, toys of it just because, it's merchandising, but I can't see kids going really crazy over that. But with that being said, let's get into the characters, because like I said, it's easier to go through all the individual shit when we focus on the characters themselves. So we'll start off with the obvious, Cassian Andor. He's still as bland as I remember him. I know his whole arc is him going from being a surviving loner to him becoming a rebel in the Alliance and stuff, but I just can't really see it. He originally had a core goal, which was to find his sister, which he does at the very beginning of the show. But then after he kills those two guys, that whole side thing just goes out the window. We don't hear anything about it. We don't see him look into it at all for the rest of the show. Pretty much his entire thing, the whole series, is him running away from point A to point B. He keeps getting dragged into these situations, and he's trying desperately to escape them. It's just non-stop running and escape with him. Like, yeah, he returns sometimes to meet up with a friend or a loved one or something.
And they don't want him there.
Yeah, they don't want him
Want
there.
him
He
there.
tries to get him to come with them and they won't go. So, yeah, it's just him, running. Just constantly. You see him just put up with everything around him, again, for the sake of survival, but he himself just isn't interesting. And even when you learn his background, you find out that he's not actually from this one planet. He was actually from, I guess, this jungle planet or whatever. It was like
Canary or something like that?
Yeah. Where it was like, people who like lived in the woods or whatever, who lived off nature. And the whole reason he got caught up where he was because the Empire tried to launch an unsuccessful mining regiment there. One of their ships ends up going down, and when they try to explore it, one of his own gets killed by one of the survivors, who himself immediately gets killed. Then, as a sort of act as a revenge, he goes inside the ship and tries to break it, I guess. But while he's there, that's when his future adoptive parents come by, who I guess are scavengers or something, who are trying to steal stuff from the Empire ship before reinforcements come. They see the kid, knowing that he's pretty much as good as dead once the Empire gets there, basically kidnap him. They drug and kidnap him and steal him away from Canary. I know in retrospect it was a good thing, because they reveal later on, after the fact, that after the Empire got there, that they basically wiped out all the natives. Because again, the whole mining thing didn't work out, plus, they found these natives hanging around a fallen ship with their dead comrades, so they're gonna put 2 and 2 together. So in a way, they did save him, and they try to install like the whole rebellious mentality on him, but it doesn't quite work. But because of that, I guess it just leaves him wanting to at least know his roots to see if he has any surviving blood relatives left, but that's what ultimately gets him in trouble. And honestly, that is a running thing with him at the very least. He can't seem to let people go. He tries to follow up on his sister. He basically gets the whole Empire on his ass. He tries to go back for his mother, and again, he gets the Empire on his ass. He tries to, save his fellow prisoners and everything, and again, almost gets himself shot. It's just never ending.
I wouldn't say he's shoot first, ask questions later, but he's pretty ready to just kill without giving too much thought about it.
I can appreciate the whole Han Solo mentality, shoot first, ask questions later, especially in that type of universe. But it kind of makes it hard to root for him sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I will give him credit for the end of the heist arc, when they get the kid to the medic, and the one guy turns out he lied about having a brother or whatever, and he just wants to leave the rebellion to their own devices, as long as he just screws them out of their cut. And Cassin does not care for that, and it just enforces more him wanting to get out of it too. So he shoots that guy and then just, let me take my cut and get out of here.
I mean, I don't blame him, because the guy gives him shit the entire time he's there, and he's the reason why there was such distrust among them, why he had to forcibly out himself as a mercenary, because the guy's like, oh, you're lying, you're not dedicated to our cause at all, you're a traitor, da-da-da-da-da. The guy's basically saying about him what he himself is actually doing, try to take all the heat off of himself.
He's a hypocrite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when he reveals his true colors at the end, revealing, why he tried to screw him over in the first place, and then tries to pretend that he'll cut him in on the deal, Cassian knows. He's like, you just went through this whole elaborate ruse and already tried to sell me out the river. I'm not believing a single fucking word you're saying. So I understand fully why he killed that guy. And it's also, unfortunately, a bad situation where, you gotta explain that to the rest of his comrades, why you had to do that, knowing they won't believe you. Hence why I understand why he ran, but that just caused way more problems than it should have. And the thing is, I'm not even blaming Diego Luna for this. I know he's a good actor. In fact, he voices a character in one of my favorite movies of all time, Book of Life. I've seen what he can do when he has an actual character to work with, when he has proper material to work with. But with this, he's given almost nothing to work with, because Cassian is just written so blandly, and half the time he doesn't even say anything. I feel so bad for the dude, just, being reserved to his role. I mean, he does the best he can with it. It just sucks that he can't do more. We never see, a lighthearted side to him, or a fun side. It's just, most of the time, he's either pissed off, or scared, or serious, and it's just hard to root for him. It's I feel bad for him, but that's about the extent of it.
The side characters on Ferrix, they all waver between saying, oh, Cassian's the best, man, we love him, and otherwise being like, get the fuck away from us. You're nothing but trouble. It's like,
She kind of is.
Yeah. I can't find consistency in the character. I really can't.
He basically screws over everybody he comes into contact with. Even the people he saves end up suffering because of him. And it's like, dude, if you're so intent on running away and staying hidden, just run away and hide. Why do you keep coming back to these situations? And granted, it's not his fault half the time, but still. And so the next character to address is Cyril Karn. Again, he's an Imperial deputy. He's the guy that is basically the reason why all of this shit is now happening to Andor. I've seen other people do a perfect summary of his character. He's basically a power tripping mall cop who's like trying to get a promotion. And you could tell because he goes so hard in his protocol and everything, and it's like, dude, why are you treating this guy like he kicked your puppy or something? You don't even know him, and yet you're summoning an entire barrage of troopers to try and take him down. It's like, why?
Notice me, Empire Senpai.
And it's funny because when I first saw him, I immediately thought Game of Thrones, and I'm like, holy shit, is that freaking Ramsay Bolton? Is that crazy son of a bitch? Is that what he's gonna be? But it's not him. I looked it up. It's not him. It could have been, though, given how insane this guy gets in terms of pursuing Cassian. Like, dear God, he goes all in, and he has no business doing so since he himself really isn't anything extraordinary. He's not that smart. He's not a good fighter. He's just a guy obsessed with his job and its status.
And then, like, after completely botching the job on Ferrix, he gets fired and has to live with his mother, and he still can't let it go. But I don't really blame him, given what a pain in the ass his mother is. But on the other hand, she does try to help him and get him a job, even if it's like, oh, have you heard about your uncle? He could get you a job. You should be kissing his feet. He's awesome.
I know one of those guys is retentive.
Please. It's already hard enough with my situation. You have to freaking just pile it on.
Yeah, I did feel bad for him in that respect, that he basically got demoted to a desk job and had to move back in with his, like, overbearing mother. But it kind of deserves it, because, again, he didn't have to go that hard. He doesn't have to keep obsessing with it. And granted, he has reason now, because Cassian's the reason he got fired, but it's his own damn fault for going in blind and costing all these men their lives, like thinking this would just be an easy arrest. And then, on top of that, he doesn't drop it. We see that the ISB supervisor calls him in to, like, learn his side of the story of what's going on, and he kind of gets obsessed from that point. Like, he kind of changes senpais. Now she's his new senpai. Because she's one of the few people that listens to him about that. So he instantly, hard eyes, motherfucker. So he's, like, kind of stalking her and stuff, which I thought was hilarious.
He's filing, like, a bunch of emergencies. It's like, dude, 911 is not Uber. It's not your takeout service.
He's like, I want to complain to the manager. The thing is, like, he doesn't do that much up until the end, because he's obsessed with her and he's obsessed with finding Andor, he ends up going back to Phoenix, and he's there for when the funeral situation goes down, and he ends up saving her, because she gets in, like, way over her head at this point. So now you think this is probably going to be the point where they team up, because they're kind of the same character when you think about it, with the exact same motivation. So I kind of been waiting for them just to team up in that respect. Now Andor's got even, like, a bigger problem after this, even more so than he already did. I mean, I thought the guy was okay in terms of how he portrayed him. He's definitely the anal retentive type. You definitely get annoyed by him constantly being on the trail and stuff. I just guess we'll see where he goes from here, like how far he'll take it in the next one. I'm expecting him to just finally, like, confront Andor and just get his ass whooped. Or at least it'll be a huge build up to him finally, like, meeting up with Andor and be like, I got you now, and then Andor just shoots him. It'll just be like that. Next character to talk briefly about is Bix Colleen.
Oof.
She's kind of a dumb character, I hate to say. She's Cassian's former flame, and she's into, like, black market dealings and stuff, but She does a lot of dumb moves, which not only gets him in trouble, but herself in trouble. And I almost thought she was going to die at one point, just because of how in such deep shit she got herself in.
Honestly, she might as well be dead at the end of all of it anyway.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah, because she first loses her boyfriend because she made the stupid decision to date someone who easily gets jealous, thought she was hooking up with Andor. So what does he do? He sells him out to the Empire, because that makes just all the logical sense, and the boyfriend gets killed for his troubles in doing so. And then because she's associated with him and was associated with Andor, they capture her, they question her, they friggin' mentally torture her. So she's just like, half the season, she's basically just, you know, curled up in a ball, like muttering to herself and stuff. Like, she's still kind of there, but not completely gone, but you can tell there's been damage done. Again, I'd feel bad for her, but like I said, there was just...
She kind of did it to herself.
There's just stupid things she did, like, again, trying to communicate with Luthen.
The radio, yeah.
In the radio with Luthen, and she's doing it on an open comm multiple times for long stretches, and she not only incriminates herself, but the guy whose facility she was using, like, the poor innocent guy, almost, again, mentally tortured because of her actions.
Like, I get it. Cassian's adopted mother is on the verge of death, and they want to let him know so he can see her, or at least be aware of it before she goes. But at the same time, the Empire has doubled down on Ferrix. It is not safe at all for him to be there, for them to try and reach out to any form of the rebellion, and yet she continues to press it. I was so glad when Lutheran said, you know, no, we're just gonna ignore these transmissions.
Yeah, thank God.
Like,
if he responded, that would have been the end of him right there.
And then she goes through this torture process, which, oh my God, it just really shows how bad, how devastatingly evil the Empire is. It's something we don't experience, but they tell us enough to know just how freaking excruciating this torture is.
Honestly, I'm surprised this scene hasn't been memed more, because you see them putting the headphones on her, and you see her face, and then her screaming, and meanwhile I'm watching this, and I'm like thinking of the most annoying song I can, and I'm like, it's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Or, you know, this is the song that doesn't end. Like, why are people making fun of that scene more? There's so much you could do with it.
But I mean, honestly, it's like you see her just dying ever so much more each time we see her, and I'm like, at this point, is it even worth saving her? Because she's probably gonna want to freaking off herself, because she'll never be able to get that sound out of her head.
Yeah, like, she almost didn't leave with Cassian at the end because she was worried the Empire would punish her further, but thankfully he was able to get her out of there. The problem was he kind of left her alone with those two people running the ship, saying that he'd come back, but we know he's not coming back. So Lord knows what's going to happen to her from here. I mean, I honestly don't have high hopes. If she survives to next season, I'll be surprised. And the next person to talk about is Marva Andor, Cassian's adopted mother, played by Fiona Shaw. I was surprised. Like, I looked at her and I'm like, I know you. And of course, we all know her as Aunt Petunia from the Harry Potter movies. Dear God, this woman, like, why doesn't she have more movie roles? Like, why is Harry Potter the only thing I've heard about her being in? The way she acts in this, I was, like, in awe of her. I'm like, why would you give a short part to someone this talented? A lot of her speeches were really good. And it's weird because she's just this frail old woman, but dear God, she has a powerful spirit about her. It's like, no wonder Cassian's like kind of intimidated by her half the time despite her poor health. I was truly impressed with her in this. I won't lie. She's probably one of the few characters I thought did a really good job in this show. Like, I actually felt sad when she died. Like, I knew it was inevitable. When she told Andor that she wasn't gonna go with him, I'm like, yeah, chances are A, she knows she's dying, and B, she's just going to be a hindrance to him if he does take her. And I mean, she spent her whole life in that community. She's built up a name for herself. Like, you may as well just, you know, die in a place like that, where at least you're surrounded by people you care about. I can understand the mentality, and I just love her last fuck you speech to the Empire during her funeral, too. That was pretty epic. And actually, funny enough, I did read in the original script, her last line was going to be, fuck the Empire, and Disney made them change it, because they already got away with saying the shit word, apparently, early on.
I remember hearing it.
So, saying the F word on top of that, I guess, was just a little too much. It's like, damn it, why can't we hear people in Star Wars say fuck? I want to hear someone say fucking Star Wars, goddammit.
You know what, it's a galaxy far, far away, a long, long time ago. They probably can come up with their own really naughty curse word, really hard curse word.
Funny enough, I've seen fanfics that did just that would make up like their own swearing and stuff in like alien languages, and I always wondered if they ever incorporated that into the show, but if they did, we never heard. Except for R2, who we know like swears constantly, we just can't understand him.
They say dank ferric, that basically is the equivalent of fuck.
Yeah.
Or some sort of swear. Honestly, be creative. If you're gonna swear, do it right.
Son of a motherless goat.
Mm-hmm.
Son of a man in a holy hat. And just to touch briefly on her husband, Clem Andor, again, I feel bad for the guy. Like, I can see where Cassian gets his bad luck from in terms of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, because literally, the guy wasn't doing anything wrong, was trying to break up a fight so the Empire wouldn't notice, and he gets himself killed for his troubles. Dear God, I think that family is cursed. And then we move on to Luthen, played by Stellan Skarsgård, aka guy you've seen in many, many, many things. And again, another powerhouse actor here. Like, he doesn't have to go as hard as he does for this role, but he does. And again, easily one of the best things about this show, because he plays like a dual role, as you mentioned. He's both the guy who's financing and sort of running the rebellion, but at the same time he has to put on the whole front as an antique owner, and he has to change his language, his body mannerisms, part of his personality, just to sort of blend in and not arouse suspicion. And I actually think he does a pretty good job pulling off both. He's both someone that doesn't seem like a threat, who seems like he's warm and inviting and everything, but he can turn on you at the drop of a dime and seem really intimidating. And I appreciate his versatility and being able to do all that. It's really impressive. I don't know what he sees in Cassian per se. I mean, I kind of thought he was kind of turning into a scapegoat at one point. That's what it kind of felt like.
Kind of, because he basically said to Vel that he's expendable, so if he doesn't cooperate, you just go ahead and kill him.
And that's what I'm sort of thinking, because he's also very controlling with, like, who does what. Because then he kind of bullies Vel into accepting him, saying, like, look, I'm the one who set this up. What I say goes. You don't have to tell everyone the truth. Just say it was part of the plan all along, but we need this to happen, and he's our best shot. He knows what's going on. He knows what needs to be done. It just sucks that a lot of the time it ends up involving screwing other people over in order to do that. I know there's one scene where he meets up with an inside man who's in the ISB, and the guy gives him the information, but then he shows signs of wanting to pull out of his role, because the guy says he has a family now. He needs to think about their protection and everything, and that he believes they're getting in too deep. And you see, like, Luthen's kind of ready to almost shoot this guy.
It's like, you think you've got things that you're gonna lose. I've sacrificed everything.
We don't know the full extent of his backstory yet. I assume they're going to go over that more in season 2. But I can only imagine, based on the people he deals with, he definitely must have sacrificed a great deal. And the fact that he's going this far and this hard just to stay under the radar.
He's clearly ready to die if it happens, because he's like, I'll die for the cause. I know this is something that I'm working for that I will never see. But damn it, I want it to happen.
Like, he's one of the few people that actually can intimidate Saw Gerrera. That is an impressive feat, because we all know what a nut job Saw is. We know that he will turn on anyone he thinks isn't all in on this cause or is not doing it the way that he thinks they should. So the fact that he's able to both intimidate and rationalize with him to get him to do what he wants, like, that's pretty damn impressive.
That stung me when he tells him, okay, you have to actually let your troops go in, continue the attack that you've planned without telling them, that they're all gonna get wiped out. It's like, oh, that's hard, but it has to happen or else they're gonna get found out.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those hard calls, and you know that he has to be the guy to make it a good portion of the time. It's like, yes, he has to sacrifice these innocent lives, but if he doesn't, then more lives are just gonna be lost later down the line, because they need to stay in secret for the time being, at least until he gets the proper finances to better pull all this off. Because at this point, this is all happening 5 years before Rogue One happens, so we know the rebellion isn't at its full peak quite yet. So it's a rather tentative situation here, where they're still trying to build up. It's just getting more difficult because of the Empire tightening their stranglehold on everything. I look forward to the scenes that he's in, because I find him the most entertaining.
Oh yeah, he's got the charisma, and just every scene he's in, he steals.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, I would watch season 2 if only to see how his story ultimately turns out. Like, I know he most likely is gonna die, because he can only keep a secret for so long, and he is kind of an open target. I would like to see just how it gets to that point. Like, that is the only probably returning point for me for Andor Season 2 at this point. Next we move on to Deidre Marrow, like I said, the ISB supervisor, who, like Cyril, is really obsessed with her job and really fucking determined to capture these rebels at any cost, even if it means pissing off every single one of her coworkers around her. Because after the whole heist gets pulled off, she kind of sees through a lot of the signs and stuff of that the other Imperial officers are missing. She can tell this is rebel activity. She can tell that there are other planned like heists that are going on as well. She can see the patterns starting to form, so she's trying to alert them to this, but of course they disregard her because, you know, she's a lower station and doesn't hold as much power over her area as others do over theirs. And it's kind of a fight for her just to get recognized by them. In that sense, I kind of was rooting for her. Like, I know I shouldn't have been rooting for her because she's technically a bad guy, and if they listen to her, all the rebellion's plans get fucked. But at the same time, you see how hard she goes, how hard she tries to gather this evidence to show that, look, this is a pattern that the rebels have been doing lately. I can find a way to sniff them out. I can find a way to save our resources and save the Empire and stuff. It's like you kind of gotta admire her in that sense for just being able to out-logic them with the importance of this.
Oh yeah, speak of logic. She's like almost to Admiral Thrawn levels of like just being steps ahead of everybody.
I know, I'm like looking at certain scenes she's in where she's saying like, oh, this is too predictable. It's gotta be this, and I'm like, did you read the script? Oh, what's that on the table? Like, she hasn't reached the point of clairvoyance yet. She gets pretty close, though, at times. Again, it's like she read the script almost, but you know that certain things need to happen in order to put pressure on the rebels and for there to be any sort of stakes or tension to things going on. But at the same time, though, it kind of baffles me that a character like her, who now has the resources and everything to look for Andor, who sort of knows what a threat he's become at this point, who has everyone out looking for him, somehow doesn't know that he's in one of their prisons just working away as a manual laborer. That just baffled me, and again, added to my confusion about how does nobody know he's on this planet if this is taking place in the present time. That confused the hell out of me. Like, I get they were just looking for bodies to work in the shop. They weren't looking at anyone's, like, prior arrests or anything, or seeing if there was any active want ads with their faces on it, but still, you think she would have, like, heard something in that regard. It just, that's the only, like, misstep for me with her and all of this. And I also love her interactions with Cyril. It's like, she knows he's of importance in terms of the information he does know, but at the same time, you know she thinks he's pathetic. And she just doesn't want to interact with him on any sort of, like, social level. Despite the fact that he's giving her the hard eyes.
Also, that he could basically be a threat to her position. Because, God forbid he is wrong, that's her ass on the line.
True. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's why she got him that promotion, just to keep him quiet and all that, even though now he's obsessed with her on possibly a romantic level. But I think at this point she's going to have to put up with him. And she at least seems to appreciate the fact that he saved her life, at the very least.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my God, I thought she was going to get carried away and just... off.
I know, like, when she's trying to enact that whole scenario during the funeral, trying to capture Cassian, and then everybody turns on her. Like, I thought we were going to see a reenactment of, was it Night of the Living Dead or something, with that guy who's like, choke on it! Choke on it! Sorry, I think it was like Dawn of the Dead or something, where, you know, the guy gets dragged off by zombies and torn apart. I thought we were going to see that. So it was surprising that he, like, was actually able to save her and get her away from all that. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they end up by a couple in the next season.
It could happen.
Yeah.
I almost shipped them.
Like, if they weren't both so obsessive and anal retentive, yeah, good. I feel like at some point, they're probably going to be at odds with each other. It's like, oh, only one of you can be promoted. Only one of you can go after Cassian, and then they're going to look at each other, and, like, you're gonna wait to see who draws their gun first.
I'm just like, I pity him so much. It's like he needs a win. Get him out of his mother's house. But at the same time, I hate him.
Yeah. It's like, I feel bad for him, but I hate him. It's like, I shouldn't root for you, but I do. And then we get to, probably, again, one of the only recognizable faces in this whole thing, Mon Mothma, played by Genevieve O'Reilly. And fun fact, she's our definitive Mon Mothma. She's the same Mon Mothma we saw in Rogue One, the same voice we heard in Rebels, and in fact, they even had a deleted scene of her in Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
So, yeah, she's the same Mon Mothma in, like, everything you've seen in this current time period of Star Wars. And honestly, I think she does a good job with the role she has. Again, I don't know that much about the character outside of what I've learned in Rebels, because I know she was there just briefly in the original trilogy. And I know in Rebels, she's only there for like a few episodes, but like the impression to me was that she's kind of your typical senator. She's indecisive, like she's in charge, but she's not. And you can't really get behind her as a leader too much. It's like she calls the shots, but it feels like she just doesn't know what she's doing half the time. This, I felt, fleshes her out a little more, because, I mean, this is before that period where she's fully involved in the rebellion. We see the sort of struggle she has to go to trying to be an undercover, like, financier for the rebellion, because she comes from a rich family. She was able to just take money out, no problem, and transfer it to their funds. But because of the events that go on in Andor, as well as the Empire as a whole just tightening their grip on everything, it's gotten a lot harder for her to give them money, and she's trying to find ways around it. It's not helped by the fact that, you know, she has an idiot asshole of a husband that constantly surrounds her with people she doesn't like, who wastes her money, who acts as a general asshole to her, and even pits their own daughter against her half the time. I'm thinking it's one of two things. Either A, he's been spying on her the whole time, or B, he's that big of a fucking idiot that he just gets her found out through his own incompetence. Either or, I know he's gonna die because we never see her family.
That or she's gonna just leave them because they suck.
They'll probably abandon her. Like, even her daughter's a bitch. She's like your typical spoiled brat, but again, half of that is because it's the dad making her the bad guy that has to say no and stuff and draw her back, whereas he lets her do whatever she wants. And plus, she doesn't like the whole fact that, you know, her mom's a senator, that she always has to be on ceremony and have to make a good impression, otherwise she risks her mother's reputation. I can understand in that sense, but still, her daughter's just a little brat, all in all. And I half think that her father's, like, putting her up to spying on her mother at that, because you can tell the daughter acts a bit suspicious of her a lot of the time. And you can tell that Mon does love her daughter and does want to protect her despite how much of a brat she is. It really comes to a head, though, because at one point when she realizes she can't move her funds anymore, she goes to talk to an old friend of hers that runs a bank, and thankfully, he's against the Empire as well. He's trying to find ways around it, but the only way to do that without any of the auditors noticing is for basically an outside source to move it for her. Unfortunately, the guy's kind of sketchy, and he'll only do it on the condition that she allows him to set up his son with her daughter. Because apparently part of the customs on their planet, was it Chandrilla, was it?
Chandra?
Yeah. Is that the kids there can get betrothed as young as like 13, which is kind of cringe. In fact, you find out that the reason Mon is with her husband is because it's implied it was all an arrangement, which makes all the sense since how different those two are, and there's no fucking way they would ever get along like normally. And obviously she doesn't want that for her daughter, because she herself is already trapped in this shitty marriage that she has to keep up, you know, for the sake of her role as a senator. And she doesn't want that for her daughter, but it gets to a point where either she does that, or the Empire comes down her throat asking, where are these hundreds of thousands of credits gone to. And it kind of makes it depressing of that, because her daughter says in the beginning, oh, it's only about what you want, what I can do for you. And sure enough, her daughter kind of becomes a pawn again for her own use in order to help the rebellion. And you kind of feel bad for her in a sense, like how much she's putting on the line, how much she has to compromise her integrity just to get what she needs to help the greater good.
Ultimately, she's trying to be the turd in the punch bowl on purpose a lot in the Senate. She's trying to be as dull and pedantic about her beliefs and anything, so nobody will really pay her much mind, so that she can actively assist the rebellion when nobody's looking.
It just sucks because by doing that too, nobody listens to her when she tries to get some legit legislative pieces like passed in the Senate. You see whenever she's speaking, people either ignore her or they just walk away. And it sucks because, you know, she can't even do good things the legal way. She has to do these underhanded tactics because doing it the honest way just doesn't work at this point in the Empire. And like I said, you know that when season 2 comes around, this is going to all come at the cost of her family. It's either going to be they die or they turn on her. I guarantee you, it's probably going to be they turn on her and try to turn her in, and they die for their troubles. That's what I figure is going to happen, because that's usually what always happens. Either way, since we never see them in any other properties, I know those two are done for pretty much.
But at least there is one family member that is actually positive somewhat to Mon.
Yeah, the next hero we get to is Vel, and she was the leader who basically led that whole heist job on, what was it called? Eldani, was it? Yeah. And honestly, I didn't really expect much of her. I thought she seemed like the generic leader, and I honestly expected her to die too, or at least we never see her again after the heist. So to see her pop up again later on was surprising, especially to hear that she's actually Mon's cousin. And we find out that she probably defected more from the family than Mon did, because the husband makes the comment that, oh, you should really find yourself a husband, you're getting on in years, and you could tell she did not want any part of that, especially when you find out that she actually has a girlfriend in the rebellion, so there's that little thing. But also, you know, she is like deeply entrenched in it as well, more so like she's actually doing the dirty work in terms of going on these missions and stuff. And you can tell that like, she's getting to the point where she's kind of sick of Luthen's shit. Because, you know, he keeps putting her in these compromising positions, and then she has to turn and try to kill Cassian unless he risk, you know, possibly outing their secrets and stuff and being involved in all these high-risk things. But it's like, it just seems to be costing her more and more, and I kind of feel bad for her in terms of like where things are with her girlfriend too. Because like we don't know much about Cinta aside from that her family was killed by the Empire, so she definitely wants revenge, but she's like too focused in that. Any nice moment between them is kind of ruined by her attitude. It's like, we don't have time for this. The Empire never rests, so I'm not going to rest either. And you can tell that Vel wants to have some sort of like future with her, like wants to live some sort of life with her outside of all this. It's just not possible, and she's giving no effort to make it possible. I really do feel bad for her in that regard. Not to mention, you know, half the people around her are basically lying to her a lot of the time, so it's like you can barely trust anyone. I'm like wondering going into season 2 if she's gonna still try to kill Cassian, or if Luthen's gonna talk her out of it or something, because at this point it's starting to cause a lot of trouble for her and was adding to the shit list of people that want him dead, so I'm a little suspicious of her in that part. I'm at least hoping she tries to maybe reach out to Mon's family, maybe try to at least change the daughter's mind on her mother or something, but I don't see that happening, really.
I mean, the daughter's really likes Vel more than her own mother, so.
Yeah.
But then again, I think she keeps bringing her things.
Yeah, I mean, that's what any good relative does.
Yeah.
You always bring like gifts for your nieces and nephews. So.
Yeah.
And then the last person I want to talk about is Kino, played by Andy Serkis. First of all, big shock that they not only brought him back, but they brought him back as himself, as a completely different character, a good guy at that. Because as y'all know, he voices Snoke in the sequel trilogy. So them bringing him back as just a prisoner was really surprising, but I can see why they did that. And it kind of adds to my curiosity and bafflement of why does Andy Serkis constantly hide behind green screens and special effects and stuff when he himself is such a great actor? It like baffles me because, again, he's one of the best things about this show. He is what kind of makes the whole prison segment really good, because you see his whole personal arc throughout that whole thing. You know, he starts off as the floor supervisor who's very stern, wants his floor to do the best so they get the best rewards. He's determined to serve it out faithfully until his shifts are finally done, so that way he can finally go enjoy his freedom. He believes this is all legit. So to see when he finds out the devastating truth that no, he's never getting out of here, he's just going to be sent to a different floor, and he has no choice but to either put up with it for the rest of his life or to die snitching, you see how that changes him, and you see that he ends up leading that whole rebellion with Cassian, that he makes sure that all of his men get out by any means necessary. He makes that whole big impassioned speech, you know, telling them, look, you guys have a choice. You can die here or you can come with me. You know, there's one way out. And he leads the whole escape, and it's a great scene and everything. It just sucks that he most likely died because he couldn't swim. I'm like, you went through all that and the poor guy can't swim. That's not fair. That is just so sad. And I'm looking at him like, dude, at this point, you're better off risking drowning than to stay here. Just take your shot, dude. You better yet just grab like something you think will float and just jump.
That, or, you know, if you can, get to the top and find a ship. Fly that off.
Like, I generally do wonder what happens to him and if they're going to address that in the next season. Because I would like it if he suddenly appeared right the fuck out of nowhere and be like, I survived, bitches!
Mm-hmm. The sad thing is, you could honestly get rid of the entire prison scene and nothing would really be lost. Honestly, it was very predictable what they were manufacturing. And after credits scene came out, I'm not at all surprised.
On the one hand, I do and I don't like the whole prison segment, because on the one hand, it's supposed to add to Cassian's character, show that he's starting to become a leader in terms of rebellions and stuff. He's seeing all this awful shit that the Empire is pulling, and that he should be one of the people to make it known to everyone what exactly is going on. But on the other hand, it's like, you take it out, you don't really change anything or lose anything in terms of what's going on with the rest of the universe and the stories and stuff. It's just a detour for him, like a side mission.
It only really serves to put him out of the way while everybody's trying to get in touch with him about his mother dying. That's it. And even then, it's almost like you could probably do anything else. All it really goes to show, again, it's more world building and showing the conditions of the Imperial prisons. Just everybody's a prisoner in their eyes.
I mean, it's also supposed to be commentary too, like the fact that Cassian got pulled over just because he looked suspicious and he just happens to be a man of color. The fact that he's given this outrageous sentence for a very minute offense. And the fact that he's in a system that's designed to perpetually keep him there. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what real prisons do. Even though some of them are supposed to be about rehabilitation, they will do whatever it takes to, you know, get those people back in there because they get money for it. They get free labor for it. So, yeah, I can understand the significance of having all that there. And it's especially symbolic given that Cassian himself, when you think about it, is technically a migrant. He's been planet hopping, is like not native anywhere. So you can again see the whole symbolism in that. I don't know, I just hope something significant carries over from that scene. Like if they brought back Andy Serkis for something or whatever, if it became an important plot point in the plan later on. But
because as you addressed earlier, it's really dumb. It makes the Empire look incredibly bad and freaking arrogant because they're looking all over for Cassian. Supposed to, you know, be their prisoner, and he already is. They didn't bother to really look into, do a thorough background check when they arrested him. They just went on the name that he gave, and that was it. That was enough for them to just throw him in the slammer, not even give a second thought to who they have incarcerated.
It's like if you saw a guy who's been on America's Most Wanted for like weeks on end, only to find out that he's been sitting in some small town sheriff's prison for a speeding ticket. That's what it feels like at this point.
It's dumb. It's really dumb.
Like I said, I hope it comes in the future, just to tie into something, because as it stands, like you said, it really does feel unnecessary, except for Andy Serkis's role.
Right.
And I genuinely do wish that he does survive, if just so we could see him again, before he most likely inevitably is killed, because let's face it, Andy Serkis's characters die in almost every single thing he's in. But yeah, he was a powerhouse in this, and I give major kudos to the man. Like, he really should have more roles where he's as himself, not just a CGI creature. Like, granted, he's perfect as that. He's the iconic guy you go to when you need a CGI character that can emote and speak really well and stuff, but give him the man his own credit for being himself, because he's a national treasure. So that being said, we pretty much addressed everyone, with the exception of a few minor characters, which I honestly don't remember that much about. Again, this is basically the cast of thousands. You could tell just how little they had to work with Andor, by virtue of just having this many characters. And I know that's a big problem as well within the prequel trilogy, in that the characters they were trying to focus on were so boring, they had to bring in even more just to counterbalance it. Again, same situation. It just adds to our distaste of this so much. Just like, we're already focusing on a character we don't care for, and then we're just using it as an excuse to focus on other characters we either really like or really dislike.
There's a positive to letting a series breathe, take its time. This one is taking excessively long gasps of air. It's like the first episode, I'm bored. Second episode, I'm bored. Third episode, I'm less bored. Episodes 4 through 6, okay, I'm invested. Episodes 7 through 9, I'm a little less invested. Still kind of cool, but then it ultimately leads nowhere. Plus the fact that the first episode of that arc, Cassin doesn't show up until like halfway through the episode. And then the real plot doesn't happen until like the last 5 minutes. That's a problem. The episodes end in just like the weirdest, not natural places. I don't know who's to blame for that. I can say, yeah, you really should watch 3 episodes at a time, but if there's not really enough substance in there, then you cannot justify making this a 12-episode series. You could seriously cut so much from it and nothing would be lost. And yeah, I'm happy for getting, the world building and non-Jedi stuff. Having Mon really be the only existing character that we focus on, because honestly, she didn't really get a lot of development in any of the past things that she's been in. So I'm fine with them expanding on her character in this, and it works, and I like her. I'm very mixed with this series, but I like it. But it does not live up to the hype. It's very disappointing when people like really amp up just how excited, how much they love this series. And then you take it, and you're like, this does not live up to my expectations at all. And why are we focusing on this guy?
I've seen people say this is better than Mandalorian. Are you shitting me? How is this in any way better than Mandalorian?
Better than Boba Fett. But that's a very low bar.
True that. No, I will give it credit. It is at least better than Boba Fett was. But Boba Fett at least was somewhat entertaining to watch. With this one, I was just bored consistently.
I checked out so many times. I can't
Obi-Wan was better than this.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan had a lot of problems.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I remember reading in terms of like the director's like commentary about this was they said that they wanted to make a Star Wars property that was for everyone, that any casual person can go into, any casual fan can follow, they can watch and, without the need of getting into the entire franchise. I rebuke that statement. Mm-hmm. This is a prequel series to a prequel movie, which is a sequel of a prequel trilogy. You already have a whole length of backstory to get through before you even touch the original trilogy to know where it all ends up. There is no fucking way any casual person could go into this and enjoy it of its own merit. Like, maybe they could if they try really hard to ignore all of the Star Wars stuff. Because, in a sense, if you took all those characters and threw them into a generic Earth background, like an everyday city-type setting, it could still work.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing would change. But even then, it's like, you're still supposed to be a Star Wars property. Show us that this is Star Wars in some sense of the word. And the fact that they're trying to do that and compel to, like, casual new viewers at the same time, it's not possible. I mean, you could certainly do it with Mandalorian, because it exists in that very large time period between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. It's not tied to any particular character, at least not till the later season anyway. But the point is, like, if you just watch season 1 of Mandalorian, you can jump into that and everything will be fine. But with Andor, like, no. This is like during peak Empire. Like, you have to really understand what makes the Empire as bad as it is, and not just by virtue of them just being a generic evil empire. Backstory is needed to some degree. Just understand, like, how tight-fisted everything is. Like, heck, Rebels did a better job with this than Andor does. And I get they're trying to go for a more serious, mature tone. They're trying to appeal to the adult Star Wars fans, the ones who, at this point in time, are, like, in their 50s. Because, like, Star Wars is about 50 years old, right? Almost?
Almost. Let's see, 77.
And this is 22.
Yeah, it's 45 years.
Yeah, 45
years since the original was released.
Yeah, most of the original fan base were kids when this happened, so they're in, like, their 50s, 60s, or whatever. So I understand wanting to cater to more of the demographic that, you know, older people would want to watch in that regard. But this is still supposed to be Star Wars, you know? I'm not expecting balls to the wall, insanity, kid-friendly CGI, whatever, that people hated on the prequels for and stuff. But I would like a nice balance of it, at least. It just baffles me the praise everyone is giving this. It's like, oh, so this is the Star Wars you wanted all along. You wanted a boring-ass Star Wars that takes place in generic space, on generic planet, with generic people. Okay.
It's like, fine. We were kind of getting that with Mandalorian.
And I get people are sick of the Jedi at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, Clone Wars and Rebels and prequels as a whole kind of demonized them and oversaturated them to the point where they aren't anything special anymore. So you want a break from that, which again, you know, Mandalorian provided. But at the same time, it's still Star Wars. These are big reasons why people like Star Wars in the first place. Andor just feels like it lacks a lot of that space magic, a lot of that heart, and just by virtue of the fact that they don't have that many compelling characters. Like, obviously they have very well acted characters. I appreciate that they have people that actually know how to write dialogue, who know how to write a script. Seeing people have these organic conversations that could exist in everyday life, I actually do appreciate that. Very rarely have I seen any memes from this show on Facebook. There's no, like, really bad lines or scenes to meme, which is honestly incredible when you think about it. But it also lacks, you know, that memorability in that sense. Because at least you can look back on the prequels and laugh. At least there are points in, like, Boba Fett that you can make fun of, and that there's, like, riffability in a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying riffing's a bad thing. You know, it's a fun thing, and that's kind of what makes something memorable when you think about it, being able to poke fun at it and enjoy it despite its flaws. But with Andor, it's like, watching it just felt like torture, and we're already people that did not care for Rogue One. So to see an extension of that was just, ugh. I guess we'll just summarize this in total. Addressing the good parts. It's very well acted, very good dialogue, very good character interaction, great sceneries.
World building is excellent.
World building is excellent. It at least has a consistent tone. I will give it that.
Yes.
And the few, like, space scenes we do see actually are pretty cool. Like, honestly.
Oh, I like the scene where the Empire stops Luthen
and he whips out his fucking lightsaber, like, wing blades on the thing. I'm like, why doesn't more ships have that?
Oh, I didn't even need the lightsaber wing blades. Just that whole scene
where he releases all of, like,
the explosives,
the explosives, and then the freaking wings and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, why?
I was already sold at that point.
Yeah, I said that was good. The big celebrity appearances, like the very versatile actors, are really good. Said there are good elements about that. I'm not going to dispute that. I would never call this a garbage series. Like I've seen plenty of series I could really authentically call garbage series. This isn't one of them. However, on the bad side, it is too serious. It takes itself way too serious. It is too somber. Cassian is not that fascinating a character to follow by virtue of the fact that we follow all of these other people half the time as opposed to him.
And more of them are far more fascinating to follow.
Yeah. The pacing is atrocious. It goes at a snail's pace. It is unfocused sometimes.
Periods of time go by and we don't even realize anything happened.
Like, there are plot points that you think will be important that get dropped and never get addressed again. And there's like the consistent downer tone of everything. This is supposed to be the rise of the resistance, and yeah, sometimes you do get that feel of like, yeah, we're about to take on the bad guys and win. But it's just followed by more tragedy, more pratfalls. I almost felt like I was watching Last Jedi again. They're trying to escape the Empire, and every time they try something, it fails. And you think that, okay, now they're gonna get away. Oh no, now they're gonna die. It's like, oh, maybe there's a chance to live. Oh no, everybody died. It just constantly feels like that, and I don't like it. I appreciate this for the world building, for sure, but in terms of the characters, like, I need compelling, likable characters to get behind. Even if they're flat out evil assholes, as long as they're entertaining to watch, I can get behind it. There is nothing entertaining about most of these characters in the show, especially its lead.
I can get behind taking your time on something, letting, like I said, letting the scene breathe, but when you just meander about, you've either not given me anything nice to look at, or we're taking way too long to focus on this thing. Now I've checked out. Now I've lost interest. You need to pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, so in terms of recommending this to people, I'd say check it out if you're curious. See if this is the type of show that can appeal to you. Like, if you like serious crime dramas and spy shit and heists and stuff, this might be up your alley. Like, if you want a more mature toned Star Wars, something that doesn't have a lot of Jedis and lightsabers and magic involved and stuff.
Pew pew.
Yeah, a lot of fights in that regard. You might like this. But if you want something that has more of the same tone as the original trilogy, something along the line of Mandalorian or whatever, you're not gonna like this. We certainly did not.
I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but I was not raving about it.
It's a hard watch.
Yeah.
It's a very hard watch. Like, seriously, we put this off for so long. It took us most of a week or so just to get through all 12 episodes. And this is not something I would ever rewatch if I ever could help it. And I honestly have serious reservations about watching season 2. Given it's just as long, it's probably gonna be just as padded. I mean, theoretically they could pick up the pacing because, as I said, season 1 takes place 5 years before the movie happens. And it all over the course of a year. Whereas from what I heard, season 2 is supposed to take place over the next 4 years. So we could get a lot more time jumps. They could theoretically budget their time more, wrap up a lot of the loose hanging threads and stuff, and make it a self-contained series. Like, I heard they might stretch it to 3. I hope that's not the case, but who knows. But for now, in terms of season 2, it's a big maybe for us. Like, maybe if there was enough people who want us to actually watch it, we might consider it. Comment down below if you think we should or not, because I have no clue who I've managed to piss off by this point. And if we could see the dislike buttons on these YouTube videos, I guarantee you we'd have like 10 million downlikes.
They're gonna come with torches.
Oh god, we're have to bunker down and stuff. We're gonna hear the horrors in the distance. But yeah, as it stands, this is a big no from us and a big pass and a big maybe as to whether we'll continue it or not. But as I said, if you guys like it, all the power to you. We don't fully understand why, but, we respect your decision. Just don't lambast us for ours. Anything additional to add before I wrap this up and before we have to go into hiding?
Well, before we all head out, it is that time of the season, so I'd like to wish everybody a happy Life Day.
Oh, God.
May all your songs be sung by B. Arthur.
I wouldn't mind that, honestly. At least you can say Andor is better than that. But we're still not done yet, people. We have one last part to this 3-part end of the year review. And it's gonna feature, again, a singular special, one that I thought we would hate, but actually was surprising to us. Guardians of the Galaxy, the Holiday Special. Nice segue, right?
Yeah.
So tune in next time for part 2 as we look into a property that we thought we would really hate but took us by surprise. So until then, I'm Kat McBerry.
I'm Doug McBerry.
And may the Force be with you if you venture into watching the Andor series. Godspeed, people.
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars.